Hi, everyone. In my project, I explore contemporary aura photography through my own aura photograph to investigate its circulation of rhetorics of well-being in relation to a larger neoliberalist agenda wherein individuals are conditioned to seek and ensure their own economic stability and successful livelihood. When getting my aura photo taken, I was asked to sit in a chair facing the camera and to place my hands, palms down, on temperature-sensitive metal plates. The sensors gauge and convert my body's heat into data, which the computer program, aura imaging, translates into colors. These colors make up my aura. The aura correlates to the 7 chakras, or points of spiritual energy, that span the body from the head to the base of the spinal cord. I hear the shutter snap and the machine churn and watch for the plastic white Polaroid. I had seen images of aura photographs previously, but was startled when confronted with my own image. Aura photography visualizes both the body and aura as distinct yet related entities. I see myself as a subject whose boundaries are no longer self-contained, a biological entity whose edges are rendered permeable to energetic and magnetic fields. Investigations into the nature of embodiment have tended to split biological and physical inquiry, or real things, from psychosocial explanation, or not real things. Scholar Teresa Brennan explores this tendency in her study of the transmission of affect, explaining that psychology and psychoanalysis contends that the healthy person is energetically and affectively self-contained. Brennan argues that we are not self-contained in terms of our energies, and that perhaps affect, in describing feeling and emotion, may be another way to describe the ego. The aura photograph complicates this notion of self-containment as it exposes and materializes the aura as that entity which is of the body, but in excess of it. Conceptions of the aura as human energy field or atmosphere have persisted for hundreds of years and predated its photographic visualization. Described as envelope of body, mind, and spirit, the aura's unique composition came to be seen as indicative of the self. In the late 18th century, the aura became more explicitly connected to medical concepts of healing. At this time, French physician Michel Thuré's research into auras explicated the notion of animal magnetism, which assumes that magnetic fluid encases all organisms. This 1794 engraving illustrates Franz Anton Mesmer's claim that this fluid could be manipulated to restore one's health and achieve balance. What Mesmer termed magnetic fluid finds its representation in today's aura photography. As visualization technologies advanced with the development of the camera in the early 19th century, notions of the aura became more developed. Research into electric patterns, corona discharge photography, and X-rays all concerned a study of the energy field that surrounded animate and inanimate things. As a technical process, aura photography was developed in 1939 by Russian electrician and inventor Seaman Kirlian. After discovering that the photographed aura would emerge as encasement for both whole objects and objects with missing parts, shown in this image of the phantom leaf experiment, the aura became understood as evidence of a spiritual body, like a chakra, and provided support for the spiritual belief system. Scientific studies did not report on Kirlian photography until the mid-20th century. As computer technologies developed leading into the 1980s, the Kirlian photographic method was integrated with computer software to speed up and streamline the visualization process. This method produced the contemporary aura photo considered within this study. This photograph was produced by Aura Imaging Services, a company that reports to have given everyone the ability to see auras since 1970. Aura photography is a practice of alternative spirituality's New Age, whose beliefs and practices for well-being borrow from spiritualism, science, and psychology. New Age is often disregarded as anti-intellectual or superficial, something that exists outside of the perceived objectivity of medical science. Defining New Age becomes difficult as the term itself evades a succinct or coherent definition. Its parameters encompass contradictory ideas while simultaneously recognizing a universal religion. Since the 1990s, this universalized New Age has been assimilated into mainstream Western culture as a pervasive coping strategy for living in the everyday through actions aimed to heal the body from within. The neoliberal New Age ethos exhibited within aura photography and its corresponding interpretive report addresses the subject at the individual and personal level, yet seemingly only for purposes of circulating a collective ideology of appropriate embodiment and successful livelihood. Scholar Lauren Berlant calls this the heterofamilial, upwardly mobile good life fantasy. Part of this good life fantasy is the conception of health as a result of successful normativity. The aura photograph visualizes the body in order to present the client with a vision of a healed and rehabilitated embodiment. This is translated into one main image. Here, the photograph's information is translated into diagnosis. This diagnostic assesses one's character to propose methods for healing. Aura photography becomes understood as biometrics and its use of technology to see and scan a subject to authenticate and verify identity. Biometrics reproduce the logics of the regulatory sciences from the 18th and 19th centuries, like physiognomy, phrenology, and eugenics. Such imagery is fundamentally concerned with the measurement, calibration, classification, and identification of bodily and behavioral features. Created as comparative and taxonomic disciplines to determine normative body type, these systems were representative of increasingly authoritative attempts to medicalize the study of the body and were used to justify problematic hierarchies of race, class, and gender. These discourses inform cultural understanding of the normative body and thus those who exist outside the norm. In the report, these biometric mechanisms are exhibited through generalized body scans and graphs. The full body aura image pictures my aura as a red-orange. The report explains that red is the color of power, high energy, and leadership, and that orange is a mixture of active red and intellectual yellow. Thank you. A figure in black stands amidst a colored cloud of oranges, yellows, and reds. 7 circles representing the chakras span the figure to convey one's state of health. Like a mannequin, the figure is representative of the human body, but at a level of generic abstraction without any markers of the particularities of embodiment. There is no visible indication of the figure's gender, sexuality, race, or age. This full body image presents a generalized template of an average person. This template is reiterative of Western presumptions of the typical body. An early example of this is Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man as a representation of an ideal. Aura Imaging Services website even features an aura version of the Vitruvian Man. These full body images circulate template body imagery to universally diagnose one's individual body. In considering the regulatory sciences that constitute biometrics and thus aura photography, a reframing occurs which points to how these rhetorics are subjective and to the problematics of biometrics. This is the first graph featured within the report. Like the brain scan images we are familiarized with, these graphs are set against a black background with saturated color and a color gradient band to orient the viewer. The scientific aesthetics of the aura report's graphs suggest that its framing of information should be read as undisputed fact. These graphs function to authorize the photograph's diagnosis and present the back and forth relation between the photograph and its interpretation, wherein each legitimizes the other. The graphs diagram levels of the subject, leading me to ask, can the self be quantified? The 4 levels graph exemplifies the report's attempt at quantification and its algorithmic interpretation in asserting that there are 4 aspects to self: body, emotions, mind, and spirit. Implying that these are coherent entities that do not intersect or overlap, I ask myself, is the mind part of the body or separate, or are emotions a manifestation of the spirit? This assessment feels superficial, yet it also sparks personal reflection that is not necessarily truth, but that accesses a different mode of thinking. The report describes this as enabling awareness. Becoming aware here does not seem to differ from neoliberalist assertions of self-reliance, although awareness is not synonymous with personal responsibility or with one being held accountable to a situation or condition of life. Awareness has its own hybrid epistemology, one rooted both in spirituality and philosophy. Some examples include Buddhist philosophies on the practice of mindfulness as an embodied awareness to the present, or even Martin Heidegger's investigations into Dasein, meaning a presence or being in the world in Western philosophical tradition. By acknowledging the complex rhetorics repackaged by New Age, one may interpret the aura photograph in its report from a more sympathetic perspective, in which any text offering a directed hermeneutics increases exposure to new knowledges. In remaining sympathetic to the reparative potential of New Age rhetoric circulated by aura photography, one cannot overlook its overtly neoliberal interpretive framing, which perpetuates a discourse of personal responsibility and self-reliance, where science and technology exist as tools to assist one in leading a good life. Aura photography's circulation of ideologies on health and normalcy exposes the deeply entrenched medical and scientific conceptions of embodiment that become circulated within both traditional and alternative cultures of healing. As aura photography gains legitimacy through its visualization technology, neoliberal conceptions of normative subjecthood are reified. As aura reading software proliferates through online quizzes and iPhone apps, finding balance between an accountability to one's participation in and perpetuation of problematic discourses of well-being, with a sympathy to the reparative potentials of alternative practices beyond the medical model, may be the start of a pragmatic and realistic strategy for coping in the everyday. Thank you.